From the sign of its detriment, Sagittarius, Mercury retrogrades back to the truth-seeking Scorpio between November 9th and 29th. Prepare for your beliefs to be questioned, your progress slowed down, and your relationships revisited. I'm here to give you the scoop on Mercury retrograde. My name is Anastasia. I am a traditional Western astrologer specializing in natal relationship predictive readings. If you're new here, welcome. I hope you stick around for a while. If you have been coming back to me, please show your support by leaving me a like, a comment, subscribing, and pressing the notification bell. Watch more of my content to help YouTube algorithm help me grow. That's how YouTube algorithm becomes friendlier and sends more audience my way. Additionally, you can say thank you by buying me a tea, a coffee, a croissant, any other gift or token of appreciation. Thank you very, very much for anything you do, even if that just means sending happy thoughts. Before we dive in, there are a couple of ways of working with me. Number one involves booking a reading. You can do that on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. There are natal chart, really good to begin with, predictive, year ahead and solar return, relationship consultations. I can also elect the perfect moment for your wedding, your business launch, etc., as well as help you figure out the location in the world that fits your goals the best. As well as you can join my predictive astrology course and learn how to use astrological tools, solar returns, annual perfections, and transits to forecast your future to help you avoid making terrible mistakes and help you maximize all the opportunities the universe brings your way. The course begins in March. It's going to last 3 months, and I highly recommend this for people who have a pretty good knowledge of astrological basics such as planets, signs, houses, and aspects. If you don't and you still want to study with me, email me at info@anastasiadoesastrology.com and I'll recommend some reading that you can do before you join us. So additionally, on my website, you can find my 2026 planner. This is a powerful tool. I use mine all the time. I've been creating these 3 years in a row. It contains 227 pages filled with spaces to draw your chart, to learn about astrology. There are breakdowns of every month, breakdowns of each lunation, spaces to set your intentions, ritual suggestions. I keep improving on it, so check it out. And since today we're talking about Mercury retrograde and it is infamous for all the glitches, misunderstandings, and challenges, I highly recommend picking up my Mercury in Virgo 2 or Mercury Cazimi candle. Mercury in Virgo 2 captures Mercury both in the sign of rulership and exaltation. It can bring clarity, better your speech, improve your analytical abilities, help you avoid miscommunications, help you speak in the perfect, precise way, and definitely really good for the difficult transit we're about to embark on, the retrograde period. I also have Mercury Cazimi and Mercury in Gemini. Both of those can be lovely for counteracting the effects of the retrograde. So check out my website for that. So Mercury retrograde is this period we get 3 times each year, right? So we know a lot about it. I've made a lot of videos on it. If you watch me regularly, thank you. And you may know already quite a lot about it. But Mercury is the planet of the mind. It is the planet of communication and the planet of commerce. So it's commuting, commerce, and communication. And so when it's retrograde, it doesn't really move backwards, but we perceive it from here, our perspective on Earth, as moving backwards. And so, as this perceived motion suggests, there is a certain need to retrace your steps. The planet of commerce, commuting, and communication realizes that there is something he has forgotten, that there are some details he has overlooked, that there are some relationships that he's not done with yet. And so, he travels backwards, helping you review, redo, rewrite, rethink. And technology may not cooperate during this period. There may be misunderstandings. It may be harder to speak very clearly. That's why I recommend my Mercury in Virgo candle, because Mercury in Virgo is perfect at all of those things. I use it every retrograde. Like it's my solution. But yeah, it might be harder to reach an agreement. Your packages may get delayed. There may be some tensions, some conflicts that you thought you were done with that come up all of a sudden. People from your past, right? Mercury retrograde is known for bringing exes back. Over here, I would love to urge you not to take people back that have hurt you before, that are not good for you. Make good choices for yourself and prioritize yourself. Be your biggest ally, right? Super, super important. So this retrograde spans 2 zodiac signs. It begins on November 9th at 6 degrees 51 minutes Sagittarius. And then on November 18th, Mercury returns to Scorpio, and it will be in Scorpio until November 29th, returning to 20 degrees 42 minutes Scorpio. So if you have planets between 20 and 29 degrees of the fixed signs, Scorpio, Taurus, Aquarius, and Leo, or 0 and 7 degrees mutable signs, Sagittarius, Gemini, Virgo, and Pisces, this retrograde will be deeply personal for you. And we're going to break down horoscopes for all of the signs, but if you're seeking most personal advice, you want to understand how it's going to affect your relationship, your life, your career, I do recommend booking a reading on my website. So a few important dates here. So it begins on November 9th. Mercury will conjoin Mars on November 12th, which will give you a flashback to October 20th when Mercury and Mars conjoined in Scorpio. So there may be a certain need to rethink your schedule, to maybe attack and defend certain perspectives, because it's Mercury retrograde. I feel like there's hopefully going to be a little bit more thoughtfulness to the way we communicate. Apparently, around October 20th with Mercury Mars conjunction in Scorpio, there was a lot of drama. A friend who works at the bakery, one of the bakers got in a verbal fight with the boss and ended up quitting. In my building, we had the plumber screaming at 12:30 at night at another guy. We used to have one crazy guy. Now there is a couple of crazy. There's 1.5 if you consider plumbers screaming at 12:30 in the morning. They were screaming, and then he yelled, and then he yelled, "I'm sorry" to everyone, which I don't know. I feel like it almost made it worse because we were everybody's trying to sleep and not notice it. But there could have been a lot of fighting and maybe a lot of irritability. So November 12th might bring some of that back. November 18th, like I said, Mercury returns to Scorpio. On the 19th, it's going to oppose Uranus and trine Neptune, which is the repeat of October 29th transit. Some friction, some breakthroughs, some breakdowns, and hopefully spiritual insight that come out of that. On the 20th, we have an interesting new moon in Scorpio conjunct Mercury. So we have Mercury Cazimi retrograde simultaneously with the new moon. So this is interesting, right? It's a new moon, new beginnings that has roots in the past, that has this pensive, thoughtful energy, making you question things. On the 22nd of November, we have a beautiful grand water trine between Mercury, Saturn, and Jupiter. This is also the repeat of October 22nd, October 26th transit. Could bring good news, ease of communication, help you take care of the duties and be strategic about it, right? Jupiter will be, let's grow, and Saturn will be let's take it one step at a time. So it could be really helpful. And then on the 24th, Mercury will conjoin Venus, infusing your speech with charm and grace. So a couple of notes on the first half of this retrograde between November 9th and 18th is happening in Sagittarius, and Mercury is in its detriment in Sagittarius because Sagittarius is Jupiter ruled, and it's all about big picture, and Mercury really likes the details. So when Mercury is in Jupiter ruled signs, Sagittarius and Pisces, little details, important facts may slip through the cracks, and there may be a tendency to be too idealistic and too expansive in your speech, right? Talking too much, telling stories that are not always factually sound. It doesn't affect, having Mercury in Sagittarius is in no way a sign of low intelligence, but it just does suggest that there is this tendency to be too expansive when it comes to communication. And like Mercury tends to prioritize more like factual little things. So when Mercury is retrograding in Sagittarius between November 9th and 18th, I wonder if we are looking at our beliefs and realizing which beliefs are flawed and which ones are sound, and maybe a sense of like reviewing and also rethinking where we may be like overexpanding, right? In terms of what we say, what we promise, what we put on our to-do lists. And then on the 18th, Mercury returns to Scorpio for the next 11 days until November 29th. It will be retrograding there. And Mercury in Scorpio helps us dig deep to the core of the matter and offers a lot more truth-seeking, intense, passionate speech. It's interesting that the ruler of Mercury in Scorpio will be Mars in Sagittarius. So Sagittarius energy is very strong. And when Mercury is retrograding in two houses, it may suggest that those houses are just being lit up separately, or there might be a continuous storyline there. Like if you are Aquarius rising, no, let's say Capricorn. I'm like, who would be a good example? Maybe Pisces rising. If you're a Pisces rising, Mercury will begin its retrograde in your house of career and then move into your house of education. And so there might be a sense of like, oh, I don't know what I want to do professionally. Oh, maybe I'll go and study, right? So it's like backward movement that connects two houses. Or it could be very separate and you're like, I'm dealing with a lot of work back and forward and miscommunications. And there's also this legal issue that I need to deal with that is coming from the past. So I'm going to run through the 12... I'm going to run through the 12 zodiac signs, giving you tips on what kind of energies might be activated for you. As always, personal advice is best done via readings. You can book one on my website. You can also join my predictive astrology course or pick up my Mercury remedies and my 2026 planner. All of that is at anastasiadoesastrology.com. So if you are an Aries rising, Mercury is retrograding from your 9th into your 8th houses. And 9th house is connected to education, travel, legal matters, writing and publishing. And 8th house is connected to debts, loans, taxes, and shared finances. And so these could be two separate things, right? Mercury begins its retrograde in the 9th house, and you're looking back over some legal agreements. You're maybe having to deal with some documents you submitted. You may be hearing back from old teachers and meeting them and hanging out. And then the second half from November 18th until November 29th, there may be some financial matters that you have to deal with and some agreements that you need to rethink. Questions around fairness may be coming up as well. If we were to put this as a continuous storyline, right? Maybe you're planning to go back to school, or you're planning to travel, or you're planning to start a school, or you're changing something, you're expanding, right, with Sagittarius being activated. But you realize that in order to do that, you first need to settle some debts. You need to maybe apply for some business loans or student loans. Maybe you need to renegotiate some agreements to open space to have maybe time to travel or teach or whatever it is you desire. So it feels like on your path towards growth, you need to retrace your steps and revisit your agreements with other people to figure out how much time you have and what can you actually afford to do, right? Do share how this resonates, and if you're seeking more, book a reading on my website, register for my upcoming predictive astrology course, and pick up a Mercury candle to help avoid the downsides of this transit. If you are a Taurus rising, Mercury is retrograding from your 8th into your 7th house. And so these could be separate issues, right? With Mercury retrograding in the 8th between the 9th and 18th of November, you're paying off some old bills, dealing with insurance, maybe negotiating, renegotiating some kind of agreements with people. And then when it's in the 7th house between the 18th and 29th of November, you're dealing with some relationship miscommunications and revisiting some conflicts with your partner, or having an ex knock on your door. However, this can also be very much connected, right? If Mercury in the 8th house is making you ask what is fair, and it's making you more aware that certain agreements, contracts, situations may feel off and like there is a sense of inequality, then as Mercury retrogrades into your 7th house, you're getting the voice needed to, you're getting the words that you need to voice your concerns, and you're maybe actually beginning like redrawing some boundaries, redrawing some contracts. It can very much be romantic for you guys, because Mercury retrograding through the 7th house can bring back an ex. It can bring back an old fight that you haven't fully resolved. It can encourage you to rewrite some kind of contract, rethink how you spend money in a relationship, rethink what fairness is when it comes to planning a wedding or paying for a trip, right? Things like that can be all activated for you. Highly recommend my Mercury in Virgo, Mercury Kazemi candle to avoid the challenges of this transit. You can find it on my website. You can also book a reading on there and register for my predictive astrology course that begins in March. If you are a Gemini rising, Mercury is retrograding from your 7th house of relationships, partnerships, contracts, agreements into your 6th house of work, health, service, and problem solving. And so either two separate storylines, right? Between November 9th and 18th, you're dealing with misunderstandings in relationships, addressing old fights, maybe having an ex or two come back into your life. And then between 18th and 29th of November, when Mercury moves backwards into Scorpio, there's some work matters that you have to address, some reorganizing of your desk, closet, home, workspace that you need to do, maybe even some health issues that you are working on, right? Like your doctor reaches out and tells you that they want you to like repeat some test, or they have some type of like changes to your diet they'd like you to try. So that's possible. And alternatively, this can also be like a continuous storyline, right? Like if we're looking at maybe a need to create changes in your everyday life inspired by what's happening in your relationships. Maybe your spouse goes out of town and you now have to figure out how to do your work and take care of your 4-year-old. Maybe your nanny gets sick and you also need to figure out some kind of strategy. Or maybe you're fighting a lot with your partner and you realize that it's connected to like very mundane things and chores, and maybe there is some way to reorganize that. Or you realize that your health prevents you from having a good relationship, so connections can be established between those parts of your life. If you're seeking more, I highly, highly recommend my Mercury in Virgo, Mercury in Gemini candles, because you are Mercury ruled and this transit has the potential to hit you the most. Find it on my website. On there, you can also book a reading, register for my predictive astrology course, and pick up a planner. If you are a Cancer rising, Mercury is retrograding from your 6th into 5th houses, the sector of work, health, service, into the house of pleasure, romance, parenthood, and children. Two separate issues may arise, right? The first 9 days of this transit, between the 9th and 18th of November, Mercury is retrograding through your 6th house and your problem solving. Maybe there are some health matters that you need to revisit and address. Maybe you're literally decluttering, addressing some conflicts with colleagues, trying to figure out like ways to streamline your work somehow. And then between 18th and 29th, when Mercury is back in your 5th house, there may be some relationship, romantic miscommunication, some matters involving children that you have to deal with. Maybe a creative project stalls, or you're feeling uninspired and you're going back to your old passions to find a renewed sense of pleasure and joy. However, this can also be a continuous storyline, right? Like maybe Mercury in the 6th house suggests that you're too busy, that you're you haven't been prioritizing your health, and like you need to maybe move things away from your schedule. You maybe need to rethink your workload and make these sort of very tangible, maybe boring decisions that will allow more space for fun, for dating, for being a parent or spending time with your child, for making art, right? Because sometimes if you're feeling uninspired and you're feeling stuck creatively or in your romantic life, there may be some things that you need to change in your routine to even give yourself some breathing room. And if you have too much breathing room, maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's about getting organized, right? Do share how this resonates. For more, book a reading on my website, register for my predictive astrology course, and pick up a remedy for this transit. Mercury candles are perfect, both Virgo or Gemini or even Mercury cazimi. If you are a Leo rising, Mercury is retrograding from your 5th house into your 4th house. And I feel the sun coming out. How nice. Leo risings ruled by the sun, and the sun is warming me up. So the retrograde begins in the 5th house, and it can be about an ex. It can be about a creative reorientation, maybe feeling a little stuck, having to rethink your process, having to look back to your old sources of inspiration. And then it moves into your 4th house on November 18th. And the second half of this retrograde is potentially about reorganization of the home, rethinking of your family dynamics, of addressing some secrets or some unspoken truth in the family, facing maybe some childhood wounds and healing childhood wounds. And those can be two separate storylines, right? Or they can be connected. If we're looking at the 5th house as the house of romance, maybe you're looking at like, what is my love life looking like right now? Or what is it like to be a parent? And then you're retracing your steps and you're going into the 4th house and you're looking at your childhood and unresolved wounds and like sort of connecting your pleasure to a need for introspection. Romantically, like I said, an ex may be coming back into your life. There may be changes in the lives of your children that require even an adjustment in terms of where you live or an adjustment in your home. Changes in your home that are connected to wanting to do more creative work and having to adjust in that regard. So a lot of different possibilities. Do share how this resonates, and I highly recommend my Mercury cazimi, Mercury in Virgo candle for this. You can find them on my website. You can also register for my upcoming predictive astrology course and book your personal reading. All of that is at anastasiadoesastrology.com. If you are a Virgo rising, Mercury is moving backwards from your 4th into your 3rd houses. It is your chart ruler, so it's really important for you. 4th house is all about review in the home, family, real estate matters, construction in the home, maybe things slowing down, maybe having to redo something or rethink your approach to your relationships or projects in the home. And then the second half from November 18th until November 29th, Mercury will be retrograding through Scorpio in your 3rd house. And this feels like you rethinking how you communicate. And you're rethinking your everyday life and your technology you use and trips you take and everyday communications, and maybe figuring out what is worth and what is not worth your time. And the two can be connected, right? The two can be very much about like, oh, there is an issue with this real estate situation in my life. Maybe I need to communicate more clearly. Maybe I need to get some permits in order to get things done, right? Maybe there is a sense of like having to talk to a sibling in order to figure out a better way of caring for elderly parents. Maybe there's a way that like with the 4th house, you're trying to look for more comfort and security. And so with Mercury moving backwards in the 3rd house, you're having to look at your schedule and your agenda and figure out what is worth your time and what is just wasting a lot of energy for you and creating a lot of frustration, and get a lot of light bulbs in case things start breaking up. Highly recommend my Mercury in Virgo candle for you guys because it falls in your first house and it's perfect for the retrograde period. Find it on my website. You can also register for my predictive astrology course that begins in March and book your personal reading. If you are a Libra rising, Mercury is retrograding from your third into your second houses. Either two separate storylines. Third house retrograde until November 18th could be about redoing some projects, rewriting some things, rethinking your strategy when it comes to your business, maybe also streamlining your schedule, streamlining your workspace. Questioning certain things when it comes to your brand and your business. And then after November 18th until November 29th, as Mercury retrogrades through Scorpio, you're potentially questioning your finances, having to pay some bills that you forgot about. Fingers crossed that doesn't happen to any of us. I don't want to find out about some bills I forgot to pay. But it can happen. So be very mindful with your financial choices, right, before this and during this, right? Don't spend a ton of money because Mercury retrograde might reveal some holes in your game that you need to fix up. The connection between the two houses is also quite likely, and maybe you're questioning which skills you have that are potentially monetizable. Can you say that? Monetizable skills? Skills that can bring you money. You're maybe restructuring your schedule and decluttering so that you can feel more content, right? Because second house also represents self-worth and confidence and how much you value yourself. So maybe also figuring out, third house can be connected to education. Maybe you're also questioning whether you should study or teach and how to better do it. So some kind of like adjustments both in your schedule, in your job, in the skills that you use in order to create like a better flow, I think, and to maximize your income as well as maximize your energy output, like minimize the waste of energy. There may also be some matters that involve siblings and neighbors that you have to address, or you're writing communication-driven projects that you need to either redo, let go, or invest money into. Share how this resonates for more. Pick up a Mercury in Virgo candle. This is really good. Mercury in Gemini is also great. And book a reading on my website or register for my predictive astrology course. It begins in March 2026. If you are a Scorpio rising, Mercury is retrograding from your second into your first house. And I see this as either two separate storylines. So between November 9th and 18th, Mercury is retrograde in your second house. And you're rethinking your spending. You're maybe handling some bills you forgot about. So be really vigilant with unnecessary spending, because at this time, Mercury might make you more accountable for what you spend on. Dealing with some kind of financial and renegotiating, even with your job potentially. Maybe you're starting to realize that you want to make more money and you're starting to build your case in order to present it to your boss. And then between 18th and 29th of November, when Mercury is back in Scorpio in your first house, you are rethinking your style, your skincare, your look, maybe questioning how you present yourself, and by extension, looking at your wardrobe, looking at your tattoos and feeling like maybe you want to get some new ones, or maybe you feel like you want to get rid of some, like there may be just sort of like a sense of like reorientation and all of these questions of like, who am I? And the two houses can be connected, right? As in you're thinking of money, and then you're like, how can I use my best gifts and talents to make more money? Or you're realizing that you're discovering a new passion, and then the money house comes in terms of investing into that passion. So considering a change of identity, image, and style and how it affects your finances is what I'm seeing for you Scorpios. If you'd like some help, pick up a Mercury candle on my website. Mercury in Virgo 2 is especially nice because it falls in your 11th house. And you can also book a reading on there and register for my upcoming predictive astrology course. If you are a Sagittarius rising, Mercury is retrograding in your first house until November 18th, and then it moves backwards into your 12th house. And the retrograde lasts there until November 29th. So the first half of this could be about a sense of like sort of crisis and identity crisis a little bit. You're looking in the mirror and you don't recognize the person with this hair color and you're like, I want to color my hair differently, or I want to change my skincare. I don't really know, and like feeling a little bit confused. And then as Mercury retrogrades into your 12th house, it becomes a lot more about what's underneath it, right? If you're in the beginning, you're maybe questioning like outward appearance. And then when Mercury retrogrades in the 12th house, you're like, oh, it's actually not about what I look like. It's about me wanting approval from my boss, who is kind of like my dad, who I never got approval from, right? Some type of like hidden, interconnected dynamic may show up. Mercury retrograding in the 12th can also just be like about sitting with yourself, processing unresolved issues, being more honest in terms of your self-sabotaging tendencies. And so it's almost like the first half of the retrograde will make you a bit more externally oriented, and then the second half of it will be a lot more internally oriented. And maybe two separate issues come up, right? Like until the first half makes you really want to change your skincare, and then the second half is about processing the loss of your mother, right? Or the ending of a marriage or something like that. But it is also quite likely that the two are very much interconnected, and you need to grieve, you need to process, you need to release and heal so that you can be confident in yourself, and so that you're feeling less confused, right? Another way this can show up in the 12th house, we also deal with like energetic and healing work, right? I have 3 planets in the 12th house, and I love astrology, right? And astrology is this sort of hidden science that is, many people are like, how does it work? Why does it work? Right? Like, how is it possible that you can use it to predict what kind of person is going to be? So there might also be, for some of you, there might be like a very obvious connection between like tarot, astrology, spiritual work, healing work, and turning that into a part of yourself. I'm going to say one more thing too. With the 12th house, we're also often dealing with faraway places and being isolated. So for some of you, it can also be about moving and going to spiritual faraway places. Highly recommend my Mercury in Virgo or Mercury in Gemini candle for this transit. If you're seeking more advice, visit my website to book a reading or register for my upcoming predictive astrology course. For the beautiful Capricorn rising, Mercury is retrograding from your 12th into 11th houses. And either you're dealing with some spiritual issues, questioning things in the first half of this retrograde, and then maybe addressing some friendship matters, some group projects, misunderstandings in the second half, or the two get intertwined and you're looking at your self-defeating tendencies when it comes to friendships, when it comes to putting yourself out there and following your dreams. Like, how do you stand in your own way? If you had to be brutally honest, what are some of the things you do that do not serve you, right? Are you being too Sagittarian about some things? Are you being too uncompromising? Or you have some like very sturdy beliefs that do not help you? So rethinking that. And with the 12th house retrograde, there might also be some trauma work that you've done, some healing that you've done that encourages you to use it for your dreams, right? Like using something subtle, something spiritual, something healing that you've experienced and turning it into 11th house matter. So like writing a story or putting on a play or joining a group that is interested in the same type of things that you're interested in. Connecting with friends and allies as well. Highly recommend my Mercury in Virgo candle for this transit to avoid the more challenging manifestations. And you can find it on my website. You can also book a reading or register for my upcoming predictive astrology course on there. So check it out. For the lovely Aquarius rising, Mercury is retrograding from your 11th into 10th houses. And I keep saying this, but I see this as like either two separate storylines. So the first half of the retrograde activates your house of friendships, networks, hopes, and dreams, right? And maybe you are dealing with some misunderstandings with friends, or you're feeling a little confused about what you want in life, right? And then the second half, between 18th and 29th, when Mercury is back in Scorpio, it's more about your career. It's more about like, suddenly there are a lot of misunderstandings and you're juggling a lot of balls at work, and like it just feels like too many things. Or it can be interconnected, right? The retrograde beginning in the 11th may suggest that you're looking at your allies and you're reaching out to people to maybe help you figure out your professional situation. You're maybe redoing something, like giving a project another life, something that you've worked on in the past. And that could be an old play, or it could even be your resume, right? Like you're rewriting your life trajectory or your like professional trajectory, right? Especially because we're going from 11th into the 10th. You're like, well, I'm no longer this person that is represented by this resume or this story. And you're like, how can we redo it and revisit it? So yeah, like rethinking your alliances, maybe even rethinking agreements you have with other people. Like if you're working in a business and you have people who like do food delivery for you or something like that, there might be shuffling around there. There may be a need to like reach out to old connections and to get yourself aligned with what you're ultimately trying to accomplish professionally and personally. Check out my Mercury in Virgo candle. Highly recommend this for this transit because it can help avoid the downsides of the retrograde. You can find it on my website. You can also book a reading on there or register for my upcoming predictive astrology course. It begins in March. If you are a Pisces rising, Mercury retrograde is moving through your 10th and 9th houses. And here you're looking at the house of career, status, reputation, public life, and the house of education, travel, law, writing, and legal. I already said law. Law, writing, and publishing. And there could be two separate matters, right? Between November 9th and 18th, Mercury is retrograding in the house of career, and there may be some misunderstandings, some delays with people getting your information, and maybe some confusion in terms of what your boss expects of you. And then the second half from the 18th until the 29th of November could be about maybe you're also in school and you're dealing with some exams, or you're rewriting your dissertation, or you're dealing with some kind of legal situation that requires your attention, a visa or an application for something. Or the two can be connected, right? Mercury retrograde in the 10th can encourage professional fine-tunement. You wondering what is it that makes you feel happy and fulfilled. And then as Mercury retrogrades into your 9th house, there may be a sense that professional fulfillment will require going back to school or teaching or traveling or guiding people, right? In the 9th house, or doing law maybe, or if I didn't say writing, writing, publishing. Definitely, 9th house represents like gurus and guides, and it represents faraway journeys. And it's also the house of astrology. So for some of you, maybe you're realizing that you want to incorporate astrology as part of your career. Maybe you're a therapist and you're like, let's also look at your chart and pinpoint the wounds and challenges. So it could be an interesting time to ask yourself deep questions and like maybe even look back at how you saw yourself and your path when you were really young, when you were a kid, right? And how can you get yourself back there? Highly recommend my Mercury in Virgo 2 candle for this transit. Find it on my website. You can also register for my upcoming predictive astrology course on there. Begins in March, or book a personal reading. This is it. Thank you for watching. Don't be afraid of the retrograde. It is something you've done many, many times already. Of course, it is helpful to know what exactly might it be about for you and what it might bring. So get ready. Remember to drink a lot of water, breathe, and move slowly, and we'll get through it. I'll see you soon. Bye.